It's just disgusting.
Yeah.
The whole country is disgusting. It's dirty. The biggest thing that Gaza highlights is that they don't care about children dying. So if they don't care about children dying, my position is they don't care about our children here. If there's no money, who's responsible for that? Central government. That is not a narrative they like, because then it's their fault. They prefer to blame crime, drugs, on migrants, on refugees. So rather than spend billions supporting foreign wars, spend that on your NHS, on your schools, fix poverty, you'd have fixed everything. The government is trying to create what's called a police state. The police state is where every single thing all citizens do is monitored. In order to create a police state, they use people like the Muslims as scapegoats and as an excuse to bring in heavy-duty policing laws. Once those laws are in place, they then use it on the rest of the populace. That's how it works. So for example,
what are you going to do that's going to make a change to what's different to what Labour and Conservative are doing?
I don't need to play that clever posturing. I haven't got a party telling me don't do this, don't do that. My position is clear. As Muslims, we have to stand for justice for everybody.
What are your objectives? What are you standing for?
If I was to win, then
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So today's Salaam Seeker podcast is a special. Alhamdulillah, we have a special guest, Brother Attiq, with us today. Thank you so much for joining and making your time to come here. Why do we have Brother Attiq here? With the general elections coming up, being announced by Mr. Sunak. Boo! So inshallah, we had Brother Riaz with us and we spoke about Luton independent voting, and I think alhamdulillah they have made massive strides in getting a couple of independent candidates, and we've got one here in Brother Attiq. And inshallah, before we start, just give us a little bit of background about yourself, because I think you're Luton born and grown, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm born and bred in Luton.
Yeah.
And then university was in London. That's where I trained to be a lawyer. And then after qualifying, came back to Luton, worked for a few years, started up my own practice. We've got 2 law firms now, 3 sister firms altogether. So we do operate in tangent. We've got different areas covered. And the sort of work that I personally do is I do the serious crime end of criminal law. So murders, big frauds, or terrorism and all the rest of it. Employment law for businesses and individuals. And Sadaqah Jariyah, every year I do a pick of 1, 2 or 3 cases which are against government or police for discrimination or Islamophobia.
Yeah.
But because it's unpaid, we don't have the capacity to take every single case on. It just depends on how we're running. And we try and do at least 1 a year, maybe 2, because we're a small team. And yeah, so we've got a lot of work that's been reported nationally over the years. I've been in the game for about 20 years now.
MashaAllah.
And 10 of that in Luton.
MashaAllah, amazing. And brother, where does politics come into all of this? Because this is all about independent voting, and mashallah, you're a pioneer in Luton. Personally, I've seen seen the work that you've done and really inspired by yourself, and a lot of other people have been as well. But that's been on a legal sphere and within the community. You've been very active in the community. But how come now is it now that you've gone into politics, and what are you trying to do with this time now?
Strategic manoeuvring and strategic thinking, which involves the political landscape, has always been part of the Sadaqah Jariyah work that we've done. So, for example, when Prevent first came out, there's only a handful of lawyers in the country and a couple of NGOs that understood what it was. And we regularly did work on that. And when you're doing that sort of work, you're challenging Islamophobia or discrimination, racism, and all the rest of it. The people you're facing is not just, we're facing the government really, because all the different institutions you face are different arms of the government, whether it's the police, whether it's local authority, whether it's MI5, whether it's SO15, it doesn't matter. They're all different arms of the same central unit. And so you learn that when you're doing a campaign, because we've involved a lot of justice campaigns over the years, locally in Luton and nationally. One of our national campaigns was so big that when the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd protests were happening, people around the world were also taking the knee for our case, including celebrities. And so we've done social justice campaigns. And that feeds into the whole political narrative, because it gives you understanding how politics and parliament, the whole strategic side of it works. And so the way we've always worked is we've always had a multi-pronged approach. There's not one approach you can do when you're challenging politics and policies. And that in itself feeds into where we are now. I first stood 10 years ago, but that was just to send a signal to the local politicians in the
And were
Bedfordshire
you
area
independent when
as
you
an
stood
independent
in?
as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
But this time it's different. This time lives are at stake. This time we're playing to win. And this time, we're looking to make a difference on the political landscape in this country and the way it operates.
So Siddi, I want to ask you, what do you, well, I'm bringing Siddi Noor into...
I'm not running my
maybe not now. Inshallah, you don't know. Maybe you're going to be independent soon. So Siddi Noor, what I want to ask from, for Muslims, especially in Luton and obviously elsewhere as well, what do you expect to see from an independent candidate or a candidate, but obviously independent?
Yeah, of course, from a religious perspective, the first thing is if we're going to back somebody, we want that somebody to represent not only the values and the teachings of Islam, but also be observant of the laws of Islam, the Sharia. I think this is one of the biggest complaints I come across when I'm tackling this from a religious legal perspective. People say, why should we vote for, be they Muslim candidates or non-Muslim candidates, when they always compromise? You see, you're in politics, it's necessary for you to compromise. It's the way the system is. You can't change the system. You're going to be changed by the system. So this, I think, for religious-minded Muslims, is always going to be a very, very important issue. If we're going to put our weight behind somebody, if we're going to vote for somebody, if we're going to campaign for somebody, and work to have somebody become victorious, inshallah ta'ala, that's going to be primary.
Yeah.
That the person, will be observant and will not, because there's going to be huge pressure. I'm sure Brother Attiq is well aware of this. There will be so many pressures from different ends to compromise, to make an adjustment here or there.
Yeah. So, Brother Atik, having heard that, what can you reassure the Muslim vote, especially within...
And I would say, first of all, do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, that's a very
Are there
yeah.
those pressures
Yeah,
there?
good point.
Is it very challenging for a Muslim in this sphere to remain steadfast on the law of Islam?
It can be, depending on how you operate. It can be. I mean, you're operating in a system which is not Muslim, not Islamic. You're operating not just in a system, but with people that are geared up against you simply because of your faith and your race. There are stereotypes at play that before you even open your mouth, whether it's in politics or on the street or in the courts of law, people have already formed a view of you and they expect certain things. So the problem with that is when you're on a panel having a debate or when you're standing to speak, people have these preconceived notions of you which lead to loaded questions. And those loaded questions are set-up questions, set up to try and catch you and make you fail. But in actual fact, those loaded questions are a form of racism and Islamophobia in themselves.
Yes, I agree.
So the whole formulation of it, it's like strategies within strategies within strategies. And when you're talking that sort of complexity, it's not simple. It's not simple at all. It's very complicated. And
how do you combat that, brother? Because obviously we have our beliefs as Muslims.
yes,
And that's what Sheikh was alluding to, that whatever happens, we can't, personally, yourself, you're going to have your belief. So on a personal level, you're going to have to believe in what the Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, ways has said, because we're Muslim and we truly want to act on the way of our Prophet, peace be upon him. But then when you have all these challenges that might ostensibly affect you as a candidacy, how do you combat that? And then how do you be like, you know what, I'm still going to stick to my beliefs?
when we work in law,
Yeah.
when we're running a case or anything, the way we work is we look at what is the end objective we want to get to, and then we figure out the path to that objective. Okay, so it really comes down to what is your objective. If your objective is to become knighted by the empire or have appeased these people, then you've got a problem because you're appeasing them. But if your mindset is to appease your creator and you're fearless of the creation, then you can't lose because you won't care what people think of you. You will just think about, my objective isn't pleasing my neighbors or the leadership. Actually, in actual fact, and I'm going to be quite frank with this, I don't care if I don't please anybody. What matters is what the end objective is. You're doing what you need to for your objective of pleasing your Lord. He's put criteria on us. And over the decades, or centuries even, for various reasons, there's things that have been stripped away from our deen. And one of the things that's been stripped away but is now coming back, and you can see the other side are scared of it, is the fearlessness when you speak up against injustice.
Yeah.
It's not the case that you either act physically or you keep it in your heart. There's a middle bit there. And that middle bit is so powerful that if you see the way the other side reacts to it and the way they strategize, the amount of time and energy they invest into it, that should be a warning sign to us all that speaking up against injustice is a fundamental fard, I believe, of our core
100%.
beliefs.
Yeah.
And if you follow that and you're doing it to please the Creator and that is your line,
Yeah.
then as a starting point, it's still not easy, but as a starting point, that becomes your guiding star. So when you get confused and you're thinking, oh, which way do I go? You reset and you look, okay, let me start again. What's my objective? How was I going to get there? Okay, I've got this bump in the road. I might have to swerve a little bit, but I need to stay on course.
Yeah.
And that is what the guiding line is. You know, when you're in the darkness, you look and you see that guiding star, which is your end objective.
Let's have some examples.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
So that's what I was about to say. Let's first go even a bit back a step, because I think we just jumped the gun, and that's poor hosting. City. So, what's your objectives? What are your objectives? What are you standing for? What are the clear things that you're gonna say? And when you stand up and say, "I want this to happen," what are your objectives?
When I say by objectives, you're going to think they're so simple. You know, why should it even be objectives? But then when you follow it through the way things are working in this world right now, you see that even these most simple things are actually become complicated in today's world.
Yeah.
And the most simplest thing that we want is just, hey, humanity, you know, basic principles of humanity for everybody, parity, justice, equality. We don't want people to be subjected to unlawful violence in any way or abused in any way. And if someone's a victim of something evil, there should be accountability for that evil. There should be someone held to account. And people have rights,
Yeah.
you know. People's rights shouldn't just be swept under the carpet for the sake of power and money. People shouldn't be censored or killed because they have a different opinion. You know? But it's about natural principles of justice, humanity, and fairness.
Yeah, mashallah. And I think now we can go into examples. And one of the clearest examples that you can see is the situation in Gaza or Palestine, because now it's Rafah and all these other areas. What's your stance on that, and what are you going to do that's going to make a change to what's different to what Labour and Conservative are doing? Because now they're singing a different tune. Now Labour, you talk to them about Gaza and they say, oh yeah, this ceasefire. But 5 months ago, they weren't saying this. They weren't supporting any of this. We've been going to protests months after months and just being in front of Downing Street and saying shame on you, Keir Starmer. That's what, exactly. Anti-Semitic, all these, which is weird because there's so many Jewish people there anyway. But the point is, we're not just saying shame on you, Rishi Sunak. We're saying shame on you, Keir Starmer. And he represents what I grew up as Labour. Right, that's what he's meant to represent, and we were like, I was always in the mindset.
When did you grow up?
I grew up during the time of Tony Blair. Subhanallah.
Yeah, so that's what he represents.
Yeah, exactly. But my point is, most Muslims grew up. I'm just taking it that vote for Labour. They will do what's best for the safer choice. But
the example you gave is perfect because Tony Blair, don't forget, is the man who rolled out Prevent.
Yeah.
The Prevent program was implemented under Tony Blair's government.
Okay.
And then you've got the Iraq. So what you have to remember is a lot of people say, oh, well, what's happening over there? Why does that matter here? But everything's linked.
Yeah.
Everything's linked. It's not separated. And so my position is that what you see with Tony Blair, by the time Keir Starmer finishes with us, it's going to be worse. He's already said in his speech, and nobody picked up on this. A lot of people didn't pick up on it through the last week or weekend before about ramping up the security policies, and you mentioned contest. Now, contest is the policy under which Prevent sits, amongst other policies. He's already clearly said he's going to ramp that up. And even with the ceasefire, you've got to look at the wording they're using. None of the wording that the Labour Party have used is of genocide. They haven't said that word. They're playing clever games. They keep talking about humanitarian pause for ceasefire.
Yeah, yeah.
A pause is when you literally pause for a few seconds.
And
It's
it
not a
restarts
stop.
again, and it starts again.
It's
yeah.
not a stop.
No.
And they keep using the word humanitarian. They're playing games with words.
Yeah.
They're not calling it out as a genocide. They're calling it self-defense. They're still calling it. There's an interview just 2 days ago. Kestam was asked about phosphorus gas being used. And for those who don't know, when you use phosphorus gas in a war zone, what you're doing is you're burning people alive. Yeah, melting them.
And it's not even just
So where's the red line, he was asked. His answer was, well, you can't tell a sovereign state not to defend itself. This was in the last 24 hours. It says it all. But this is all just posturing now. Even the clawback is not a full clawback. It's playing with words.
He's playing with words, but he's saying the same thing.
The minute you use the word genocide, the minute you use the word war crime, you're criminalizing that conduct. And the reason that's important is because when they come in power, they cannot support something that's been criminalized.
Yes, correct.
At the moment, even if the international criminal courts are issuing arrest warrants or whatever, there's such a long process to follow before you get to a conviction.
Yeah.
Until that happens, unless they concede it's a criminal act, they will carry on supporting them with arms, money, and whatever other support they need.
Yeah.
But if they were to say today is genocide or war crime,
They can't do that. No, that's a fair point.
And this is what it's all about. This is all clever strategic thinking, maneuvering.
Yeah.
And that's where I come in.
Yeah.
I don't need to play that clever posturing. I haven't got a party telling me don't do this, don't do that. My position is clear. My position isn't that of a party with its own political agenda, because as Muslims, we have to stand for justice for everybody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't send us onto this world just to look after one group of people based on their race and not another, or one people because of their faith or not another. It would never work like that. Yeah. So if there's an injustice or a genocide going on, for example, in Palestine, then we would also stand against genocide in the Congo, in Sudan. We will also stand against genocide in Rohingya or with the Uyghurs. So if there's a political party that stands and says, we're with you, Palestine and Kashmir, and they don't even acknowledge what's happening with the Rohingya or the Uyghurs, we can't support them. No. And then you've got the Tories and the Labour. So the point is this, the political party position doesn't work for us as Muslims because they have their own agendas. Yes, some of it might make us happy, but there's going to be other side to it which doesn't.
Yeah.
And does that answer your question?
Yeah, no,
but I think that leads to another question. Inshallah, you're successful.
Yeah.
And you win. What can you do as an independent other than articulate what many of us feel? Is there anything else that you can actually do as an independent?
Well, let's take it down to basics, okay? Let's just look at how an MP works. In the country, an MP is selected for each of their constituencies. Doesn't matter what party they're for, right? And when Parliament has its sittings, when that MP is speaking for Luton, South or North, there's not going to be 10 other MPs speaking for Luton, South or North. It's still the one MP. So from that context, there's no difference between an independent standing for Luton South or an MP for Labour standing for Luton South, because it's only going to be one person for Luton South speaking.
Whoever's won, basically.
There's no difference, yeah? So people talk about funding streams, that you can't get the funding streams, but that's absolute rubbish. Because the funding streams that come in, they're from central government to local government. And if an MP needs to speak on that, it doesn't make a difference what party they're with. They still in parliament represent that constituency. So the dynamics don't actually change. The dynamics only change if there's in situations where there's a mass vote on a national policy. And the question is, which side are you with? But this is where the independence power comes in. Because you will always have situations where there's a vote, some people will vote yay and some will vote nay, right? Some will abstain, but... So, as an independent, you have the ability to choose which side you're going to vote with. So you won't be voting on your own, because there'll be others saying, if you vote to say no on whatever it is, there'll be others also saying no, right? And if you're voting to say yes, there'll be others also saying yes. Just because you're not part of their party doesn't mean you're not voting the same way.
Yeah.
And also...
You also get the pressure from the...
Yeah, there's no whip, there's no party telling you how to vote. And also it creates a voice of persuasion. So
because I didn't want to undermine that aspect of it. Because of course, even if we were to just simply have many voices, because especially regarding Gaza, but many other issues besides, one of our concerns is we don't get platformed on the mainstream very often. So if we have lots of votes, lots of voices in the Houses of Parliament, then the hope is that the message reaches further and we get more platforms. So I don't want to undermine the aspect of just simply having another voice there is incredibly beneficial. But is there more that can be done? And what I'm understanding from your answer is yes, when there is a relevant vote, then not only are you voting on the right side, you could potentially influence others.
And that's massive because the influence of others, you could start off in a position where nobody understands a nuanced point, right? So for example, the way the politics in this country, they like to work, the government is trying to create what's called a police state. Okay, so the police state is where every single thing all citizens do is monitored. Okay, now in order to create a police state, they use people like the Muslims as scapegoats and as an excuse to bring in heavy duty policing laws. Once those laws are in place, they then use it on the rest of the populace. That's how it works. So for example, there's a legislation called RIPA, which basically allows the police to demand your PIN to your phone. Okay? And if you refuse to give it, in certain circumstances, you're prosecuted for not giving the PIN. Now, that was brought in under anti-terror legislation policy because we need to battle terrorism, right? Since then, that law has been used on people who are being investigated for benefit fraud. That's not just one pattern. I could carry on for ages. There is a much bigger agenda here, and they use us as pawns. Okay, for example, there was a terrorism case that I was involved in, and what happened is these lads, they had an undercover police officer, and they were being spied upon, and they were giving lectures during Ramadan. Okay, and what happened is everything was recorded. Everything was recorded. In actual fact, you could even see how this undercover officer was even prodding people and getting them. Anyway, but no one was prosecuted. Nobody was prosecuted. Fast forward a year, there was a vote in Parliament whether or not to bomb Syria. The vote was gridlocked. Both Parliament, all the moving. 3 days went by, almost 2 or 3 days.
Stalemate.
On the second or third day, guess what happens? They went and arrested those people who'd been recorded a year before. They arrested them in the morning, boosted it on the media. By the afternoon, the parliament got scared. Okay, bomb Syria. Thousands of people died. We are constantly being used as pawns. We don't understand the strategic maneuvering that's happening. When you start understanding it, then you realize what moves we need to be moving. And I've said this before, I really do think there's different forms of sadaqah jariyah that we do. All of us, I'm not undermining the sadaqah jariyah that we do, building wells, giving food, whatever. But I'm also a strong believer that one of the biggest sadaqah jariyah acts that we should also be doing and investing in is strategic and maneuvering and thinking and investing in those organizations that are frontline, who are underfunded, who assist us in that. Because if we as an ummah are really going to be moving forward and protecting the innocent, we can't be doing that without having proper strategic thinking and maneuvering in place and people to lead us on that and help us with it. And I think that's where we're lacking at the moment because we've never been taught that side of it.
Yeah, it's true. I'm sorry, I'm just
studying seerah.
Yeah, we do it, subhanAllah, yeah.
We study in the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam how intricate, I suppose you could say, the planning and the strategy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Subhanallah.
But I agree, yes, maybe more needs to be said about this because as you said, alhamdulillah, feeding the poor and wells and such things, it's incredibly important. It's a great form of sadaqah jariyah, but thinking about how the direction things are moving in your society and the restrictions that are being put upon you as Muslims and what you're going to do about that is incredibly important because that affects not your stomach, which I'm not undermining, not your ability to access water, it affects your deen itself, your ability to hold your beliefs and your ability to practice your deen.
Yeah, I just want to come back to the point about what can you do as an MP. So, agree with everything that's been discussed. But I think when people get confused about that topic, they think because as an independent MP you have no capacity to make a decision, they confuse that with what's the point of becoming an MP then. right?
Yeah.
Right. So, but they don't understand, for example, unless you're in government, the opposition, they all sit as opposition. They don't make any decisions,
Yeah.
but they're holding the government to account,
Yeah.
right? So they're advocating for policies that are against the government, for example, in certain directions, and that's what an independent MP does as well. To advocate
same
for positions
yeah.
and to hold the government to account. So therefore, in this situation, we hold the government to account and hold their feet to the fire on the issue of Gaza, and we create as much influence against it as well.
But the point that I was making is this. I mean, just follow up on that. That's a very good point, because no MP in the country makes any decision. Everything is done by vote.
Yeah.
Okay. And this brings it back to the point that I'm making. So we had this vote in Parliament. Let's bomb Syria. They were gridlocked. They arrested people who should have been arrested a long time ago, but they did it strategically to swing the vote. So let's analyze that for a moment. What they've done there is they used fear-mongering to swing the vote in Parliament on a critical thing which affected millions of people. Now, if we had voices in there that picked up on that nuanced move, they could highlight that to everybody
Yeah.
and say, hold on, don't get fear-mongered into this.
Yeah.
Let's look at it with a cool, calm head. First of all, what did they actually do? They were just talking rubbish a year ago. What's happened in that year? Nothing. Why does that, and in any event, what has that got to do with us bombing Syria today? Right? So this is where that nuances are so important, because only people from a certain background will be able to pick up on the nuances and articulate that to them.
Yeah.
And then once you articulated it out, once it's out,
Then
another person must say, actually, yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
Third one say, fourth one say, fifth. And next thing you know, you just averted a disaster.
Yeah.
And Imam Sahib, what's the blessing for saving one life? Multiply that by 2 million.
So obviously Gaza is a very important issue for us all, and there's no denial of that. What other things would you say, like Luton currently, like if we can talk a little bit more about even things like knife crimes and stuff like that?
Can I ask that about linking Gaza into Luton?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So the biggest thing that for me that Gaza highlights is that they don't care about children dying.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So they don't care about children dying. So my position is they don't care about our children here. How do we prove that? Well, considering we're the 5th richest country in the world, well, okay, it goes up and down a bit, but round about there. Considering Luton is 23 minutes from King's Cross, we've got our own airport, we've got Premiership football team, might go up and down a bit, but the fact still remains it's a big football team.
Yeah.
Got our own university, strong links everywhere. Yet in October 23, the Joseph Rantry Foundation did a report, and Luton is in the top 10 countries in England, which not only has
cities?
sorry, my mind. Top 10 towns in England, right, which has where children are destitute for food. So this isn't some famine-ridden place in Africa, the way they run those stereotypes.
Yeah.
We're in a town which is so close to London, such a hub. We've got every formula you could think of for greatness. Forget greatness. Our children are starving. Why? Because they don't care. Because all of this, and if almost every example you give me, whether it's crime, hunger, drugs, education, housing, you give me all the issues of society. Yes, there are different socioeconomic reasons for it, but there's actually one underlying reason for all of it, and that is called poverty, right? Definition of poverty is no money. If there's no money, who's responsible for that? Central government. That is not a narrative they like, because then it's their fault. They prefer to blame crime, drugs, people not working, on migrants, on refugees, on our communities. But it's not our problem. If the streets are dirty, that's not my problem. That's government's problem, central and local, to clean that up.
Yeah.
If there's unemployment, that's their problem to sort it out. Why should any child go hungry anywhere? And so that's how it's linked. You're dealing with people who don't have humanity back and they don't care. And so that's why politics needs to change, to bring humanity back into it. Basic humanity, before you even get to Deen, basic humanity, a child is starving.
Yeah.
Fix it.
Yeah.
So rather than spend millions and billions supporting foreign wars, why don't you stop that for a moment and spend that on your NHS, on your schools, on the single parents that need funding for their children, spend it on your communities, on all the needs, fix poverty, you'll have fixed everything.
Yeah.
It's actually quite simple, but they don't want to do that.
Just to go back on that, I think in Luton the stats is either 1 in 5 children or 2 in 4, I can't remember exactly, are in poverty at the moment.
Subhanallah, that's
like-
which is crazy
It's
because
crazy.
yeah, because with so okay, it's like for me, like subhanallah, I think you make some very good points, but
I think the sister wanted to add.
yeah, you go on Attiq, yes.
Right. In regards to poverty, so does that include the homelessness as well? Because that's
Yeah.
been increased. So what if you
Everything, if you unravel it, yes, I'm not saying there's one simple solution. I'm sure there's many steps involved. But if you strip it down, homelessness easily, where is it? Let's reverse it. Where in the world is there homelessness where there's no poverty? Or where in the world is there knife crime spike where there is no poverty? It isn't the case.
So as an independent MP or an MP, what would be your ways to kind of stop that?
would you take?
Well, the political parties won't talk about poverty in this way because they don't want to take blame. So the independent MP can. The independent MP can say, hang on, well, I'll give you an example. All the political parties that are in power use anti-migrant narratives to win votes. So anything wrong in society is due to all the people coming into our country taking our jobs, all the refugees, blah, blah, blah. So the independent MP doesn't have to worry about pushing that narrative. The independent MP can just speak the truth.
Yeah. So again, is it really about changing the discussion, changing the narrative, or is there something more that you could do as an independent for Luton directly?
So for Luton directly, that is all part of it because the MP's role is exactly that in Parliament. Okay. Plus, an MP has a platform, an international platform as well. So leading the discussion, pushing narratives, leading narratives is a huge part of it.
Because I think this is where we have to be a little bit careful that there's only so much an MP can do. You see, you will no doubt, inshallah, speak about these issues, raise these concerns, have the discussions, try to change the narrative, which is all incredibly important. And I'm not trying to undermine that, but I don't think people shouldn't be under any illusion that if you come into, if you are voted in, that suddenly overnight everything changes.
Yeah.
You see, it's a very.
It's not. I mean, let's follow that through. What's going to actually happen? If someone independent was to come in and the establishment is not going to like it. It's going to be the battle to get elected is nothing compared to the battle in Parliament that person would have to have, facing off against those who support Israel. But it's not even just Israel. It's many different topics, many different organizations.
It's a fundamental issue that you've raised just now, which is diverting from the straw men they have, essentially, the fake problems that they have, and to change the discussion to where the problem actually lies. That's going to be a huge concern.
And that's just speaking the truth.
Yeah. But what's really important to me, because I've, from the beginning of this process, I've been very interested in supporting Luton Independent as an organization. Why? Because I want Muslims to vote strategically. I want Muslims to vote based on their religious concerns, personal concerns, the concerns of their community. But I don't want people to delude themselves and think, okay, now we've got Luton Independent. Now they've selected an MP in yourself. Suddenly everything's going to change. People need to be very well aware of this, that it's going to take time. And I'm perfectly happy. I am perfectly happy with the narrative changing, with the voices being raised. For me, that's a significant start. And we all experience it, we all feel it when you have somebody, be it a political figure, even a celebrity, or somebody on mainstream media that actually voices what we feel, especially regarding Gaza, but regarding other matters as well. It brings relief.
Yeah, 100%.
It does something to you.
You feel like you've been heard.
Yeah.
Go on.
I just wanted to say, so that thing about being heard and being seen.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of the other candidates we have in the independent movement is Liane Mohammed, who's a young Palestinian girl. So, just by her getting elected and taking a seat in Parliament and not even saying anything, sends a massive message to the people who are actually bombing Gaza. Just by her presence alone. And just by the presence of people alone like Attiq and other people who are just independents, and just by them sitting in Parliament saying we actually reject the Labour point of view, we actually reject the Conservative point of view. We are here to represent our community and whatever our community wants, right? Whether they actually manage to achieve things or don't achieve things, just by their mere presence sends a massive message to different people. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is about whether what they can achieve and what they can't achieve. Certain things are very difficult to change just by one independent MPs, like the whole thing about the NHS, for example. But certain local issues are so local that you can highlight the specific...
This is important. We should really focus on this.
Because you can highlight the specific nature of those local issues. So, for example, homelessness you raise. Homelessness, you can, people like Attiq can actually talk about homelessness and say, well, actually, why are there more empty homes than there are homeless people in the streets? Right? And then, by highlighting that fact, you can actually change the local council's perspective on that. So the MP has that voice to do that. And that's what...
So again, it's about pressuring.
You have to understand that the voice, the pressure, the narratives is not... If you were to do a hierarchy of... If you were to call them tools or weapons, they're not at the bottom of the list, they're right at the top. The whole world is shaped by narratives. Policies are shaped by narratives. Wars are started, won and lost by narratives. It's no small thing.
So I actually want to touch on the point that Brother Riaz raised, and inshallah, Attiq, you can answer that. What other local issues can we tackle or pressure the local government in order for us to make change? So we spoke about homelessness. What other things are on your agenda to say, you know what, inshallah, if I get elected as an independent for, is it Luton South? What is it? What's on your list that are local? Obviously the Gaza and stuff, they're more thing.
So locally, for example, you've got issues such as with the benefit system. You've got two-child cap. Again, it's not an accident, is it? One of the problems we've got with...
So mention the two-child cap, because I don't think...
It's on benefits, that your benefits system, the way it's calculated, they calculate it based on a cap of you having 2 children.
Okay, fine.
So then beyond that, it doesn't make a difference.
They don't support you.
Why is that? It's because there's a narrative that British families should be 2.2, right?
So they're kind of following what China did.
And so they're forcing people from different cultures and backgrounds to leave their family structures and adopt theirs, right, from the back door.
Because there's a perception that Muslims have more children, probably correctly, and minorities have more children.
People of global majority background, I'll use that word terminology very intentionally. The narrative in this country is that if you're black or brown or from a foreign country, you are a minority. But the reality is there's more black and brown people in this world than there are white people. So we are not ethnic minorities, we are global majority. And they don't like that.
No, they don't.
They don't like that.
And my question is, how long do you even stay a minority? How many years? Because black people have existed in the UK for...
It just doesn't work. It's just narrative. I mean, these little labels they use, they're so powerful.
It's all strategic,
and all strategic is shaping a society. And so this is why, people say to me, why do you talk about national and not local or local? Because the whole thing is actually linked, it's all connected. Drug dealing, everyone talks about drug dealing in Luton and they blame it on us. Knife crime, all these things. I mean, I'll give you an example, very basic, cleanliness, okay? This year I was lucky enough to go to quite a few European countries with my family here and there. Normal tourist hotspots in Europe where they've got same sort of footfall like we have in England, so clean, right? You come back to England, and I swear to God, you walk down the street, and it's disgusting.
You don't even have to walk down the street. You go down to the nature places that are meant to be nice.
It's just disgusting. The whole country is disgusting. It's dirty. Why? There's no excuse for it. And other countries aren't. Even... you go to third world countries.
The perceived countries.
Even they are cleaner on the streets than in England right now. We're not even getting to nothing complicated here. We're talking about clean streets. When the big weekender happened in Luton,
Subhanallah, yeah, we
right?
saw it the other day.
Those scumbags went and cleaned everything. So the whole world was looking just for
Yeah,
optics.
yeah.
So they can do it if they want to and if they've got the money, right?
Yeah,
But the state of it after.
Subhanallah, yeah.
Right?
It wasn't it?
Now this all comes down to investment. Now this is how it works. The ruling class in this country, they're racist, okay, and they have racist far-right media that they use to push narratives. Now there's a pattern in this country. Everywhere you've got global majority populations in cities and stuff, they will push negative narratives about them up and down the country. Those negative narratives lead to big businesses not wanting to invest in those places. And those negative narratives help them justify not investing in those places. And by not doing that, they create poverty spots, hotspots, which then spawn knife crime, drugs, homelessness, dirty streets. Where does the list end? Children without food.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough that I can't remember how long it's been now. I'm on the trustee for the local food bank in Luton.
Actually, yeah.
So I know the lens of who suffers
Yeah.
in Luton of no food. And you'll be shocked of who comes to the food bank. There are families that are middle class, sort of or upper working class sort of families who are professional families. Someone's been made redundant, he's got no job, he's applied for benefits, they're taking 12 weeks to calculate, he's got no savings, and suddenly he's got no food.
Subhanallah.
They are coming to food banks, but nobody knows because it's done, it's good, keep dignity, under the radar. But that is the thing we're at. On top of that, I was a trustee for a local grant-making organisation in Bedfordshire. What that was doing was taking government money from the likes of Luton Airport and other big commercial entities, and then all the grassroots organisations in Bedfordshire would apply to them for funding. So because I was on that panel as a trustee and on the panel for the funding, I could see the whole of Bedfordshire of what grassroots organisations there are, what needs they're addressing, and what they're trying to do. So I've had, alhamdulillah, from a local perspective, I've sat in 2 seats, grassroots level, which I don't think there's many other people, no MP's done that. And so the lens I've got, understanding of my local community's needs supersedes most people because I've sat and examined it and distributed, right? And this is the difference between people like myself, independents, and these careerists. You strip away their titles of councillor or MP, what's left? Nothing. For us, the election, come or go, we don't go anywhere. We've been doing our work in the community for decades, and inshallah, we'll still be here doing the work we do. We don't need the title of MP to do the work we do for our communities. That's the difference.
So, brother, it's been really insightful. I will continue by, if we can, keep you for a little bit longer, inshallah. So let's paint 2 scenarios, and then you can give me what you're going to be doing in those 2 scenarios. One is, inshallah, you've won, you've got the Luton South seat, and now what's going to happen after that? And the other scenario is that for whatever reason, the people of Luton South have gone mad and they haven't got you in as independent. What you're going to do in that scenario? So let's tackle the one where you've won, inshallah.
So if I was to win, then I would assess who else has come through to.
Yep.
Because going to Parliament will be like going to a new school. So when you go to a new school, there's going to be, you've got to assess who's the bully. Sometimes you want to give them a smack in the mouth first so you don't get bullied. And you look at who your allies are, who your enemies are. You do an assessment. That never stops, that never changes. So it's like going to a new school. So you've got to go in and assess everybody, decide where your battles are going to be, who's going to be your allies, and it just starts from there. And then every day is a battle. Every day is going to be something else coming up, and you've got to be strategically moving. And with us, in Muslims, we believe in a thing called taking nasiyah. And we have all got our trusted sources. And this is where the independence power comes in. Whereas the political party person will be referring to the political party for guidance. I'll be referring to my community for guidance. Something props up, a vote for, let's teach kids about all of this stuff in schools. Right?
That was another point.
I'm not going to go and say, yes, sir. I'm going to come back to my community. I know what I'm feeling. My deen is whatever. But I'm a conduit. I'm not doing this for my status. I don't need it for status or for income. I'm doing it as a conduit. So the process is very simple. Come back to my community and say, this is what these lot are saying. Do you want to teach this to your children, force it down their throat? What do you want to do? Is that what you want? I know what the answer is going to be, but I'll still ask. That's the process. Community comes back and says, no, this is what the score is. We feed it back. And if we get stuck, I take guidance from people that I trust, you know. But that's how the process. It's going to be a battle. Every day will be a battle. It's not easy. And I think a lot of people who are careerists and just want to get in there for the sake, they don't understand the full dynamic. I think if people actually understood, if actually people are actually prepared to stand for the cause and not be appeasers.
Yeah.
Because if you're an appeaser, it's easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're an appeaser, you're just going to go in every day and like a nodding donkey, you're going to go, yes, sir, and it's easy, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going to go in to try and make change,
more
it's not
tough.
easy.
No, it's
right?
not. Yeah.
And majority of people, if they realize the type of battle it is and what you're putting at stake in terms of your own health, well-being, and that of your family, you know, it's not a small price to pay. And people don't think about that. You know, say for example, I'm out here right now. You know, my family's not here; they're at home. You know, they're going to be thinking, "Where's my dad?"
Yeah.
And you're talking long days every day, and we're in this battle.
Yeah.
The patience of our families is tested. You know, having a good wife, having obedient children and family that cares for you is so important. Keeps you grounded.
Yeah.
But unless you've got a good family backing from behind, we can't be out there doing this battle.
No.
It can't be done.
I think what you've touched upon there will actually trigger some people's concerns. No doubt you go in, inshallah, Dada, you have to start trying to build some kind of coalition. But the people that you will agree with on certain issues like Gaza, you will strongly disagree on other issues like what you raised, where they cheat children, etc. And that's where people who have some understanding of the system and how things work, that's where they become really concerned.
Yeah.
Because that puts pressure on yourself. You know, it's as if, okay, we worked together on this and it was important to you.
That's a fair point, yeah.
Now, this is important to us. You're not reciprocating. You're not a team player.
Yeah.
So can you speak to that?
Yeah, and the position on that has to be that you make it clear from the beginning what your position is in terms of, this is my faith. I'm not going to compromise it for you. Nobody else compromises their position for me.
Yeah.
You go to the far right don't compromise their position for us. They'll say the most filthiest things about us. They will never apologize for it.
Yeah.
The far left is the same thing. You know, with all their ideas, they think it's okay to dictate to us how we should think and believe. It doesn't work like that. That's not how the world works, and they need to be reprogrammed, not us.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, this is where the starting point comes in. Because if your objective is to appease the community and the people around you or the people in power, then you are going to be stuck.
Yeah,
But if your objective is to stand for what's right, and the formula for what's right is dictated to by what your faith is, because you believe in it, you've got to do what your faith says. And if it really comes to a crossroad and your faith is clashing, then just step out. Step out.
Yeah.
Don't. If you can't do it, no one's forcing you to stay in these roles. I don't understand these people who taking these roles, they're not even good enough for the job, and they're still sticking it out for the sake of ego.
So now let's look at the second narrative, which is basically you have not won for whatever reason. Obviously, is that the end of you and independency, running independency, or is this still part of a longer term project for you?
That I can't answer. What happens long term in terms of politics? The way it works is this: we're here. The whole objective that we're standing for is to save lives in Gaza and to save lives in England. As I've said, we have serious poverty issues where people are destitute, children destitute in Luton and across England for the most basic need of food, right? And equally, we've discussed Gaza now. So the objective isn't just to win. That's part of the formula. So we'll understand what the objective is first. When Gaza was happening and when other issues have arisen previously, especially issues that affect people of global majority background, people of our faith and all the rest of it, the problem we've had is that the government in power has no regard for us. Yes, they have. And I believe that there's two types of respect in this world. You have respect that comes from love and respect that comes from fear. Okay? They're never going to love us. So it doesn't matter how many times you stand in front of them like this and are trying to appease them, they will always just see you as some migrant that isn't supposed to be here, even though we've paid to be here in blood, sweat and tears, our forefathers. That's a story in itself. And so I'm not saying we're violent or anything like that, but we have to show them that if you don't respect our position, you have something to lose. Now, what is most valuable to them? It's not religion, it's nothing else. It's simply money and power. And when it comes to politics, money and power for them comes from the votes.
Yeah.
So, if I was to win and get elected, obviously that means I've taken a huge amount of votes from them.
Yeah.
Let's say Labour comes in, losing 1 or 2 or 5 constituencies doesn't make a difference to them being in power. They'll still be in power, but it reduces the power they have by a little bit, right? And also, even if you don't get elected, you've still taken votes, right? And that's a danger signal for them.
Yeah.
And that danger, and I was telling someone else, if you think of this as a fight and a boxing match, and you've given or school playground, and there's a bully, you might not beat the bully in a fight, but if you give him a strong enough punch in the stomach, he'll think twice before picking on you again. And it's that simple. So let's say I lose, and many others lose, because I'm not the only independent in this country, but we give the system a shake.
Yeah.
And tomorrow there's a vote on Gaza or any other country in the world. And this time the parliament is thinking, actually, we need to think twice. And because they think twice, in that process, a decision is made where lives are saved. We've just saved lives.
Yeah.
In that context, have I lost or have I won? You tell me that.
You've lost the vote, but you've won what you've set out.
And that's what it's all
that's the
about.
bit- that's what
I've
it's all
won the
about.
actual objective that I'm here for. Yes, I'm playing to win, but even if I don't win, doesn't mean that I've lost the objective that I'm here for.
It's a longer term,
Yeah, and that's what matters. And the last bit is what happens next to Attiq, Malik, or others like me. Most independents that are standing are not people that are political careerists. My career isn't politics.
No, it's not. No.
Yeah, if I become a MP or not, it doesn't affect my income.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect my status. It doesn't affect anything. The work that I've been doing, I'll still be here doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And in some ways, it's actually better for me.
Yeah.
Because when you're not stuck in the system, you're more flexible.
Yeah.
It might be the case that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best planners. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might choose. Because remember, the outcome isn't up to me or even people that are voting. It's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And He puts us where He thinks is best for us.
Exactly.
So if He believes that it's best for me to be on the outside because I'm more effective there, or it's better for me in some way, or for the ummah, whatever way around it is, alhamdulillah, that's the decision. We're happy with that. And if He believes that no, actually this person needs to be there, whatever the difficulties will be, we deal with it. Alhamdulillah.
You know what, brother?
So that's
Attiq,
it.
You got
It's very simple.
You got me thinking, because mashallah, that's a very good point. And I absolutely do not really, I'm not interested in politics as much as my wife is. And I don't really, just as in like, I'm not interested in politics because I just don't believe in what I call puppets, right? And I feel like 1, 2 votes isn't going to make a difference personally. But
Can I?
no, let me finish. Remember, you have a habit of
No, this is important because even these guys.
domestics, please.
No, listen, because you know there's a lot of listeners who are going to be in the same position. So that's why I
Yeah.
want to come in.
Yeah.
So you know, for us, even if you're not interested in politics, you're going to be involved in it, whether you like it or not, right?
I didn't
So
finish
why
it.
not?
This is what, let me finish. I had a second part of my story.
said it.
Okay, so my second part is, you know, when I saw your face and Brother Toki's face, but more your face because I've seen your face in other community initiatives and I'm involved in community initiatives. When I saw your face, I was like, what's this brother doing in politics? The brother's in law and I'm sure he's, you know, doing well and stuff. What's his interest in politics? So for me, it must have been that the brother must truly care about Luton and, you know, other factors to stand up, because for me it's more of a headache for you to be an independent because, you know, you're not that's not your career. Your career is somewhere else. Yeah. So even if you lose, that's left a thought in my mind, right? That why did he stand? What was his purpose? And I guarantee you that other people will be thinking the same thing. So even you just standing as an independent candidate, inshallah, that goes a long way. And I think, and you know, after hearing what you're saying, you know, I didn't expect you to say anything else because I know I've seen what you've done, etc. But you still need to ask the questions, and alhamdulillah, inshallah, that inspires some of our viewers as well to understand what that candidate is standing for and why are they doing it. Because you're not after the career, Brother Riaz.
So I think one of the other things is about confidence.
Yeah.
So confidence of the Muslim community and the community in general, really, within Luton, to understand that they have another choice.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever happens in this campaign with Attiq, and whatever happens now, for future electoral cycles, when people will have more influence, because at the moment, Labour are going to maybe win a high majority, right?
Yeah.
So you may not have that influence. In future electoral cycles, when the situation is tight and whatever, then those MPs become a major voice, right, in Parliament, right? And then it's also for the community to understand that, well, last time Attiq stood, he took about, I don't know, however many thousands of votes. It is possible to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Because often what we're frightened of, or what we're led to believe, is that, look, it's an impracticality.
Yeah.
Right? It's an impracticality.
And that's what
for-
they want you to believe, right? That's
Exactly.
the point. Yeah.
That independent standing up is an impracticality. You don't have the infrastructure to do it. You won't have the support
Exactly.
base. There's no point in you doing
Yeah.
it. So whatever happens now is a stepping stone into the
Yeah.
future.
If I could just follow up on that, that's a very important point. Because people do say to us, like the point that you made earlier on, that it's not going to be a change overnight. Our objective here is a very long-term objective.
Yeah.
And it's about, I don't think there's going to be overnight changes whilst we're around, but we're laying the foundation for the next generation.
That's it.
I think this is very important.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest moment of pride in the last 12 months was, you've all heard about the student encampments globally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The first one in that regard, the first student protest, as far as I know, that happened in the Western world was at Luton Sixth Form College.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 600 students walked out very soon after October 7th. And people were like questioning them and all this, that, and the other. And the children that did it, I can proudly say, the reason they were able to do it is because of foundations laid by the previous people before that in the community who've been active.
Yeah.
And it's created this movement within our community now with the younger generation active. And I'm so proud because I remember when I was in college, I had no idea what's happening in the world.
Yeah,
Let
yeah,
alone
so-
mobilize like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And for them to do that, mashallah, for us, that's a sign that the community is moving in the right direction.
Mashallah.
And nothing's going to happen overnight. But really, my main objective in that regard, exactly what the Prophet said, is to lay the foundation for the next generation.
Yeah, I think this is why a lot of our questions have been directed towards that. What can you actually do?
Yeah.
Because we need to manage people's expectations.
That's true, yeah, 'cause-
as a community, all too often we put all of our eggs in a particular basket. It doesn't work out, and then that's it. We become completely disenchanted. We want nothing to do with it. It's not the way. There's no other way, so we just do nothing.
Yeah.
So this is incredibly important, and as I said before, this is why I'm far more interested in Luton Independent as an organisation. It doesn't even have to be that name.
No.
I'm interested in the community constantly working on this.
Yeah.
Allah Most High bless you and guide you. You become victorious. You're a human being. You might compromise on certain things that would really, disappoint us, disappoint yourself as well. I don't want a situation where because one of the people we voted for, whether it's yourself or anybody else, disappoints us, so we become completely disengaged.
Yeah.
You see, expectations have to be managed. It has to be understood this is a long-term project, and people need to understand at the moment it's mainly about platform, changing the narrative, speaking out about issues. And one of the things I often say is the sad reality politically, any party, any individual wants to score some cheap political points. Muslims are the punchbag.
Yeah.
You see, they're just something about Muslims. They get themselves in the media, they get themselves some cheap political points. At the moment, if we shift that a little bit, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
How you can tackle them, and if like the MP has control over the opposing groups such as EDL.
Well, this is the thing. They're very quick to proscribe Muslim organizations. And we need to turn the table on that. And far right, ultimately, are extremists. If they're going to use prevent against us, that same policy, if they're going to keep it in play, it needs to play that way too. And it does. Because of the push that we had from the community nationally for the last decade, if you look at the stats, this is why they had a Shawcross come in and review prevent, because their stats had changed from arresting more, not arresting, but focusing on the Muslim community to more on the far right,
Yeah.
because the far right are evil. You know,
Yeah,
they're radical. They are the ones that are extremists, not us, right? And so there's a lot of wins there, and this is where the narratives come in, because if you look at this, they talk about terrorists. I mean, the only MP I can think of that was killed was by a far right, Joe
Yeah.
Cox.
Yeah.
You know,
And I
and
think she
this
was
carries.
talking about refugees, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they didn't like it.
So they are dangerous. They kill
Yeah.
people, you know, and this is where again we go back to narratives again,
Yeah.
where policies are made in Parliament, and we can shape those policies. We can stop racist policies from coming in place. And if someone speaks far right narratives in Parliament, someone can be there to address them and call them out
Yeah,
and make them
exactly.
stupid because all the media's watching.
Yeah.
And the most powerful court in this world, in this country, or the world even, is not a court of law. It's a court of public opinion. So those two battles to fight. There's many cases we've had. We know we're going to lose, but we've taken it all the way and got the mainstream media involved, knowing we're going to lose, because we know it's the power of the court of public opinion is much more important, and that changes and shapes policies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just, if we are about to wrap up, I wanted to ask you all, because going back to what you mentioned about, I'm not into politics and things like that. Siddi, maybe start with yourself. Like, what's your perspective in terms of, like, even religiously? Because where we are now, whether we want to be into politics, we want to talk about politics, it just happens. Like, our whole life, if you're living here or anywhere, like, it's going to be governed by, different laws, and part of that is politics. So what's our view on that as a Muslim, and how involved are we supposed to be? And
And Muslims, when it comes to
just going to say, and voting as well. So including that, like, as Muslims, should we go out there and vote? Because if so, I believe we need to register to vote by 15. If I'm 18. Okay.
First of all, the Muslim should be wise, Hakim. The Muslim should be qawi, strong, and the Muslim should be aziz, should have dignity. And the Muslim should also use all of the halal, permissible tools that and means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us to, address the wrongs in society. And again, primarily for us, first and foremost, it's about our deen. We don't want to be persecuted. We don't want to be pressured. We need to be able to have the beliefs that we hold, the practices that we have. So the point is, we don't want to be in a situation when we're pleading and begging with others, please give us this, please give us this. The reason I got involved with the independent movement, etc., is I want a situation where others come to us for the vote. They come to us and they say to us, look, what can we do for you as a community for you to support us? You see, whoever it is political figures, you see, rather than just ignored, they don't vote, they don't matter. It doesn't matter what we do, it's not going to affect our bottom line, because as Brother Attiq said, it's all about money and power.
Yeah.
You see, so I have discussions with people who are against voting, etc., and that's usually my biggest argument. They say, oh, you influence in this way and this way, and I don't discount that. There are many ways to try to influence, but as far as I'm concerned, the most potent means of affecting change in the political system is that you organize and you actually vote. So as far as I'm concerned, if you're not using the most effective means, you're not really fulfilling the description of a Muslim. The Muslim has to be wise. The Muslim has to be strong, should have some izzah. We want to have some power. We want to be able to dictate, and we want to be able to address society's problems and difficulties.
Alhamdulillah. I think it's a very good position to end. I think the key point here is that Brother Attiq and I think presume any independent in the Luton independent, Brother Tokir, they're just trying to change the narrative. Don't expect overnight change of X, Y, Z. It's a process. We need to trust the process. You've heard what Brother Attiq had said, and it is a narrative, and we're just trying to put pressures in the right places to help the local community. And inshallah, I think from what I can see, Brother Attiq, you have really give us really good insight into your, what you truly believe. And I think a lot of it came from the heart, mashallah. I mean, obviously I can't see what's in your heart, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this successful for you one way or another. And whatever Allah plans, Allah is the best of planners. And inshallah, if anyone needs any other information, please reach out to us at Salaam Seeker. We can get information off brother
Luton Independent.
Luton Independent. We can put. Is there a link or something there?
Yes,
We
there
can.
is, yes.
So if that, we'll put that on our podcast. But until next time, Jazakallah khair for coming to our podcast. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.